Why, aloha! It's Eric Zemelis with 365 Hawaii, and today we're going to do something interesting and exciting. Today, the plan is, way down there at the pier, we're going to launch the drone, and we're going to fly it all the way down the coast, all the way to Keauhou Bay. And we're going to take you, hopefully, it'll be one shot, but maybe a change of battery somewhere. And then we're going to kind of do a commentary on all the cool places. And it'll be a new view that nobody really gets a chance to see. You either see it from the ocean or you see it from the car, but this should make it pretty interesting. So I don't quite know how it's all going to turn out, but that's kind of the excitement of this, is you don't. So let's go check it out.
Up and away over Kailua Bay.
All right, are you kidding me? That is a funny introduction.
I know. Well, here you go. There's the cruise ship in the bay. How's that?
It's the first cruise ship in 2 years. Quite spectacular the day that we were out there, which was last Sunday.
Right. And we had 2,000 people show up in downtown for that one. So as we're spinning towards the town, you can see Hulihi Palace on the left and Kona Inn on your right. Did you know that Kona Inn was built in 1928 and it started the whole commercial tourism in Kona?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you guys see, you could, of course, the Kona Inn has the best Mai Tais, but on the edge there, you can see that there used to be a pool right there that was covered in with cement, and that whole part of the hotel was actually hit by Hurricane Iniki in 2008, I think. Mm-hmm. So there's a Alii Drive, where we do a lot of different kinds of community events.
Yeah, you didn't realize that it's actually, there's a beach area there too that you guys get a chance. You can't,
Yeah,
there's
nice
no
place
beach
for
with the
sunset.
water, but you get a pretty good place to stay.
And that's Papakona's, and you can see from the top that's a beautiful place to have an event.
Yep, and now you get a nice look at all the background of downtown. And we've got
Kona Eats and
Yep.
Drinks right there. Great place also to have a nice drink and get a nice view of the ocean and the sunset. And as we spin around downtown Kona, your favorite place.
places. We've got all
Yeah.
these different restaurants around here downtown.
And this is quite the mecca to come and watch sunset.
And our favorite Mai Tai place, of course, is
Don's Mai Tai Bar,
which is
right
here
there.
at the Royal Kona. And there it is, right there. You can see it at the bottom of that little pointed building. And then moving down a little bit, we've got the Kona Reef here, another tourist favorite, I'd say, for condos.
Yep. And you can see people can come out there on the lawn and, again, enjoy the ocean.
And we're coming up on Honol's Bay.
And
That's what
beach
And
park.
beach, right? One little tidbit on this one is the beach looks great, but careful getting in because there's not much sand once you leave the beach, getting into the water.
Actually, there's a big reef right there, and you probably shouldn't go swimming at all. It's usually reserved for people who are using their boogie boards and surfboards right there.
Yeah, definitely a boogie board area. So, a few private houses coming down.
New roadway just went in recently.
Ah.
Do you see that little discolored piece of roadway? They actually widened that and made it so that it's a pedestrian footpath and bike path, and fixed up that whole area that took about 2 years for them to complete
Traffic was
construction.
horrible during that whole time. Boy, let me tell you that.
Because that's the Sea Village where we used to live.
Yeah, and I used to work. It was a
And so we got trapped in that traffic.
nice condo complex. Yeah, a little bit of condos here, and then of course we've got Alii Villa and Kona Makai behind there, and Kona Shores is kind of tucked away there as well.
Yeah, nice oceanfront pools right there.
And of course, now we've got the Royal Sea Cliff, one of our nicer condo complexes here in Kailua-Kona.
Yeah, you guys might know that one. It has the big whale on the front.
Yeah. And then here's that new 2-acre section that's going to be a park that's coming up here pretty soon. And what I didn't learn until just seeing this video is that you can actually see a heiau right there in the middle. And I wonder if they're going to restore that, or they're going to do something with that.
Right.
Kind of
And for
interesting.
people who don't know what a heiau is, it's basically a place where they used to worship.
Right? And then, of course, the saltwater pool at Casa de Empo, Kona Isle. And
And so in front of Kona by the Sea, you guys can see that there's an open swimming pool. You can actually jump in when the waves are up, when the waves keep the fresh water moving through that pool.
yeah. So as we're moving down here a little bit, it's interesting on how many nooks and crannies that you can't see when you're, unless you see it from this vantage point.
So outside of Kailua Bay, if you are familiar with Livingstone's church, it was actually a 19th century Christian church was built on that space called Halihalawai Oholualoa And Livingstone's was built on that space in the 1990s. And as you can see from across the street, that parking lot that they own is huge. That gets a lot of traffic in the weekends.
Yes, it does. So we've got coming up here, we've got Kona Kai, and outside of Kona Kai is a Banyan surf spot, and they always have some good waves, and the guys are always ripping it up in that part.
Also in that complex is the Poke Shack with some really great poke right there in the parking lot that you can get your poke on. In between those two buildings is a little beach park, and that one is open for the public. We were joking that the Kona Kai complex does not, they have a huge security force, and they don't want you to be on their property much. But if you want to sit there and watch the surfers, there it is.
And then we're coming up to Kailua Bay, or Lyman's is where it is here. And as we know, that is one of the really great surf spots here in Kona. As a matter of fact, today, it was full today. Man, there was more cars and more people out there surfing than you could possibly imagine. We were getting some really nice waves right now.
So you can see all the surfers out there. And historically, right where you see all the green and there's no development there, that is an ancient point. That actually used to be a ancient Hawaiian surf school, and they actually had a grandstand for the Hawaiian Alii to watch the surfers and
it seems like a great place for it, too. You can totally understand why they would do that.
Mm-hmm. And only the Alii were allowed to surf.
Well, that's kind of a bummer for everybody else,
Yeah,
I'd say.
the 2% having a good old time.
Yeah.
As you can see, Alii Drive is the main way to get through this whole area. If you look upslope a little bit, you're going to see lots of extra land. And actually, from Keauhou Shopping Center all the way to the center of town, there was going to be a bypass road. But they found so many ancient artifacts and spaces that they chose not to build that bypass.
Yeah, I haven't heard any talk about that in years. I mean, when we first moved here in 2005, it was quite a bit there. The road was going to go through, but it didn't happen on that one.
No. So here we coming up on one of our favorite places to sit in a beautiful park and look out over the ocean, Pahoehoe Park. Lots of yoga classes go on there if you want to take some yoga at sunset. We've got the Magic Sands complex, and at the far south side of that complex is Magic's Grill, where you can go for a nice sunset dinner and drink. And then we also have Magic Sands, which is also La'aloa.
And what's interesting about Magic Sands in this video is that you can't even see the sand because it's middle of winter and the sand is gone. I also call it disappearing sands, and for good measure.
Right, and so out here in the middle of this bay, divers love this area. There's a underwater sea arch that you can dive down to and swim under as well. As you look upslope, or Mauka, you see Keauhou View Estates.
What's interesting about Hawaii is that they don't build houses all over the place like they do in the mainland. We have definitely neighborhoods or sections that they do it. And here's a good example of that with open space on both sides of this. And most of the island is non-buildable. 70% you couldn't build a house on even if you wanted to.
Right, in fact, if you look at some of those open spaces, they actually graze cattle in them.
Yeah, and we got 2 cattle on our place itself, so we know
Right.
all about cattle.
That would be called ag land. Look at that. That keeps it so that it's nice and not too many people.
All right, so getting back down to the ocean, and we kind of got a
Okay.
little sidetracked there where we're going in
A
life.
little land there. As we continue to head south on Alii, as you can see coming up around the bend is Kahalu'u Bay, and one of the best places for visitors to be able to snorkel is in this shallow bay.
So one of the other things that's interesting as we're coming down here is you can see there's kind of a white haze up there, and that is the fog, because at this point the volcano is going off on a small scale, not huge, but enough to kind of see that there's a little bit of a haze in the air, and you can particularly notice at sunset when it turns that golden color which you get.
As you can see, the waves are coming up in here. A lot of the surf schools will use this area to train new surfers on how to surf.
Okay, and then on the south side of the bay is I would say, world-renowned snorkeling. And what makes this place interesting, Kailua Bay, is the fact that it's not terribly deep, so it doesn't it's not so scary for a lot of the new-time people. And there's lots and lots of fish and turtles and all kinds of stuff. And because it's not deep, you get a pretty good view of what's going on there.
Right, and when you stop there, don't forget to get your free sunscreen at the 365 Hawaii sponsored sunscreen dispenser.
Woo, yes. That's good. That's a good one.
Right. So as we're flying over here, this side that you're seeing is what used to be the Keauhou outrigger and was torn down. And that area now is being redeveloped as an educational center for the Hawaiians. You saw the name of those heiaus. Those have been reconstructed since we moved here in 2005.
Yep, and it was it took about a couple of years, and it was really kind of a spectacular. We would go by and watch them because it was near where we were.
And then right there, as we're flying over this part, this used to be called the old Kona Lagoon Resort, and that also was a hotel that was torn down and is now being restored as a Hawaiian cultural space.
Okay, here Keauhou Surf and Racket Club condominiums, and it is one of our larger condominium complexes here in Kona.
Do you remember when you and I, when we first came to Kona in 2005, that complex is where we actually first stayed before we bought our condo further up the hill?
That was our first month there, and we had a good time. They have a little beach there that we got a chance to go, so definitely a good spot for us.
Yeah, and our kids loved the pool there and being so close to the ocean.
Yep, and then so now moving forward, you can see the Kona Country Club there, and they have it wraps all around the area of Keauhou, and a lot of it is on the ocean or close to it, so definitely a nice golf course.
Right, and they also have a really nice restaurant called The View, and do have a beautiful view of Keauhou Bay from that restaurant at the clubhouse. We've spent actually quite some time right here. If you guys see where the lava comes up on that greenery, and when the waves are huge, that throws all kinds of debris up on the golf course, and it's very spectacular to be right there. That's next to Kanaloa at Kona, which is a luxury development, and they are so lucky to have the crashing ocean waves right below their balconies.
Well, unless you're trying to sleep, I don't know if it's the optimum thing.
You gotta love a crashing surf.
Yeah, until it's loud that night.
Yeah, but they have like 3 pools, all these golf course, tennis courts.
Right.
But right there is a really fun bay. We call it, the nickname is H Bay, and people can go surfing in that bay during high surf events as well.
Yep, and you can actually see the waves here in the video. That there's definitely surfable waves in there.
Over on the other point, you can see the outrigger Kona, which used to be the Sheraton Kona, and watching the waves splash up against that during a high wave event is pretty cool as well. But if you get a chance, go to Manta's. That is a great place to watch the manta rays come in right below the hotel, and also you can get nice dinner and some sunset drinks. Keauhou Bay has a very active harbor. You can rent a variety of kayaks and also go out on ocean adventures with Fair Winds, Hula Kai, and SeaQuest. And with that, we've come to the end of our coastal tour.
Yay! That was a lot of fun.
Yep. So hopefully you guys learned a lot. Again, there's so much history to this part of West Hawaii. But if you'd like to learn more and get in touch with us about the lifestyle,
it's 365hawaii.info. And with that, we'll say
aloha.